Groundhog Day. Once again, do you feel like you're stuck in it? Maybe you can get out of it. Let's hope that Punxsutawney Phil grants you the forecast that you so desire. Either a long winter or a short or early spring, either way. Personally, I like long winters. Maybe that's because I'm here in northern Israel and the weather is typically either mild or very hot. Even when it's a cold winter day, relatively, for most of the country, it's not that cold if you grew up in a place where it's actually cold. You know, anywhere in Europe, like Northern Europe or Central or Western Europe, anywhere north of Spain, right? Or if you grew up in the U.S., anywhere in like the Northeast or Upper Midwest or the Northwest, anywhere there, or Canada or any place like that. Anyway, why am I talking about the weather when my title of this video is politics is? Well, it has a little bit to do with it, but politics is local. All politics is local. But the scale of that locality just depends on the context of the topic. Whether the locality is a municipality, a village, a town, a city, a state, a country, a group of countries, a world body, politics is local. And more than that, politics is typically run not by the politicians who are elected, if it's an elected system, but by the people that pay for them to be in power and to stay there. It's like, for example, in the US, you have massive divisions between so-called conservatives and so-called liberals, right? Or Republicans and Democrats. But the reality is that is not where the real division is, right? The real division is between the haves and the have-nots. It's between the donor owners who own the system and the politicians who do their bidding, right? They're one side of it. And those who may not be donor owners but are still among the haves, right? They're all on one team. And the other team is everyone else. Effectively, the have-nots, either financially or in terms of power, political power, right? Or both. And usually those don't have financial power, don't have any political power because they don't actively involve themselves because they can't afford to, for one reason or another. Right? Politics is about division. Now, there are better political systems than others. Some are better than others, right? Obviously, dictatorships unify the people underneath a dictator. That's not a good thing because it removes people's choice. It removes people's ability to choose their leader and to govern themselves through a legal process, legislation, parliament, whatever it might be, Congress. But as political systems become entrenched and calcified, and the polarization of the population is created by the powers that be, donor owners, who also happen to a lot of the time be the same companies or extremely ultra wealthy individuals who also make the most contributions to or the most investments in media companies, right? Of the largest media companies that have the most reach, among many others. It's not like it's only media companies, but media companies have a powerful reach in politics because they are essentially what's called the fourth branch of government, right? You got the legislative branch, you got the judiciary branch, you have the executive branch, obviously, and then the unofficial fourth branch of government in the US and in Western democracies that have a free press is the press, the media. I know not all governments have a tricameral system or a tri-branch system, right? Some of them have just executive and judiciary, or just legislative and judiciary. But generally speaking, right, the governing classes of, the governing branches of any government in a free society will typically have a strong press, a strong media, right? And they're there as a kind of unofficial, checks and balances, right? Reporting what the government is doing and questioning what they're doing, if they're supposed to be questioning what they're doing, and putting their feet to the fire when they don't do what they said they were going to do, and getting answers at the very least when Congress itself fails to get answers. So yes, there are differences between, for example, in America, Democrats and Republicans and liberals and conservatives. There are huge differences. Of course there are. But at the same time, you could say it's really not about that, right? And yes, you can be, look, honestly, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you fall on in American politics, right? You can dislike the current administration, you can like the current administration, you can dislike the current Congress or a particular congressman, like the Congress or congressman. Same with the courts. You can be pro this issue and against that issue. I mean, there are, for example, a lot of Democrats who voted for Kamala Harris, but who support deportation of illegal immigrants. And there are, for example, a lot of people who voted for Trump who are against the deportation of immigrants, right? Just as an example. Now, of course, the majority of each party in that case, in that particular issue, doesn't vote against what the main of their party votes against. They support it. But there is such a huge blur, especially on that kind of issue, because it's not divisive. It is used to divide people. Okay, if you really think about it, 15 million immigrants in the US, 20 million immigrants in the US is less than 10% of the US population. Okay, and that less than 10% of the US population, the vast overwhelming majority of them are law abiding. Of course, yes, I know they broke the law, quote unquote, to get into the country. Apart from that minor infraction, relatively, the vast overwhelming majority of them do not break any laws. And need I remind you, the United States was created by a bunch of largely white European colonizers who came and invaded the land. I'm not pointing out the fact that they're white to make it seem like it's a racist issue, but it is very ironic that a bunch of people who came from Western Europe to colonize the land and take it by force against the people and the will of the people who were there beforehand, right? Native Americans, First Nation people, Indians, whatever they want to be called, right? These colonizers from Europe came and invaded the United States, the land that eventually became the United States, and then imposed immigration rules. But they themselves were illegal immigrants, quote unquote. Right? They didn't show up with passports and visas. They showed up with guns. And they literally stole the land and declared it to be in the name of whatever king or queen that they came from. And then eventually they formed the United States after they revolted against the British, who had settled the land illegally, and the French, who had settled the land illegally, and the Spanish, who had settled, Central and South America illegally, and the Portuguese, who settled Central and South America, or South America illegally. So it is highly hypocritical, or self-righteous at the very least, for people in the United States to say, no, our forefathers arrived illegally, but now we impose rules upon you, and you can't arrive illegally. I mean, listen, keeping out criminals, yes, the U.S. should do whatever it can to keep out criminals. And if people commit crimes in the U.S. after they illegally immigrated into the U.S., then sure, they should serve their time if they're convicted, or and be deported back to where they came from if they can go there, right? For the vast overwhelming majority of people who come to the U.S., even illegally, right, they pay their taxes. They work. That's why they come to the U.S. They're not coming to siphon off of the U.S.'s social benefits. The U.S. has one of the worst social benefits programs in the industrialized world. Who is going to the U.S. for social benefits? That would be mad. You'd be better off going to any number of dozens of other countries if they just want to sit on their duff and do nothing. They don't leave their country and pay thousands of dollars, in some cases tens of thousands of dollars, to get into the U.S. illegally just to do nothing. They get there in order to work, and they work a lot of times very, very hard jobs. They work very long hours very often. The vast overwhelming majority of them are not committing crimes. Are the ones that are committing crimes, causing a problem? Yeah, they're causing a huge problem because they're causing all this anti-immigration hatred, right? And justification for it. It's not real justification in the sense of it shouldn't be taken out on all of the immigrants who are illegal, but it is creating a perception and therefore a kind of a justification to do this. And that's a shame because America is the land where, the land of the Statue of Liberty, man. The land of the free. Give us your tired, your poor. Let's give us your wretched masses, right? And the U.S. will give them a home where they can build their dream. That's one of the great things about America. Now, of course, seeing as I live in northern Israel, I obviously have a thought about, well, for security reasons, you want to make sure your border is tight. And that's true. And they should do that, right? But if people can even just get to the border, frankly, they should be able to request entry, even if they don't have the necessary paperwork. They should be able to get that paperwork quickly on the spot and then just be able to be processed. Because why shouldn't they want to be accepted? Why shouldn't people in the States want more immigrants, right? The only reason to not want immigrants, specifically from mostly Central and South American countries, is, look, I hate to say it, it's a kind of racism, right? These are not people coming in, for the most part, doing terrible things. These are people coming in, looking to work. They pay their taxes. They don't get anything out of social benefits that the average person doesn't get. Yes, I know some of them get cards with some thousands of dollars on it because they show up with nothing. And if they're with nothing in the United States and they don't get some kind of government assistance, they will literally be starving in the streets. And the reason they show up with nothing is because they come from places where they have to leave with nothing. Anyway, I know it's a huge topic, and I'm not an extremist on one way or the other. I just have a lot to say about it. So I'll speak with you guys later. Peace.